Okay, so last time we saw Jackson in 1832 win the presidency very easily. By 1836, the bank was forced to close, and Jackson in 1836 has decided, as we foretold, that he was not going to run for a third term. In light of all the other presidents who ran for no more than 2 terms, Jackson will be no different. Democrats, the party founded by Jackson, they are going to select the vice president, Martin Van Buren of New York. He's Jackson's friend, vice president, and he has the endorsement of Jackson for the next president of the United States of America. Now, Van Buren, he will get bitter opposition from a new political party that is going to take the members of the National Republicans, who didn't make it very long, and other anti Jackson forces, and they are going to nickname themselves appropriately the Whigs. Now, why that name is appropriate is because back in England, there was a political party that was fiercely against the behavior of the kings of England, and they called themselves the Whigs. Van Buren, a Democrat, though very elite, is not the reason that the Whigs call themselves that. They see Andrew Jackson for the last 8 years swiping away with the hand of a very powerful president all of the things that the former presidents had built, the Bank of the United States being just one of them, the bureaucracy, and this new spirit of democracy has swept through, even though many people thought it was heavy-handed. And by that, I mean he overstepped his bounds and destroyed what nobody should have destroyed. So many people hated Jackson and called him a king. So when we have a National Republican Party that's withering away due to not having any support, and other people against Jackson, they find that their common enemy is this king named Andrew Jackson. So they appropriately named themselves the Whig Party, just like the Whig Party back in England. Now, Jackson was, of course, greatly popular, and he easily won 2 elections. Would have won in 1824, but as you remember, the corrupt bargain had people like John Quincy Adams and Henry Clay making secret backroom deals to get Andrew Jackson. I'm sorry, not Andrew Jackson to lose and get John Quincy Adams to win. But when that was done away with and Jackson won 2 straight elections with great numbers, it proved that his popularity was great, and his personal support of Van Buren is going to help Van Buren win. He's no Jackson, but he's the next best thing, says Jackson. And he's easily going to defeat several Whig opponents who, of course, fight against each other to win the presidency. This is before the days of the primaries and the whittling down of several candidates down to one, as you've just seen in the past year, where we had 20-some candidates all trying to become president under the Democratic Party this year. Now we're just down to Joe Biden. This is the way that we have evolved to get many different candidates down to one to face the president. And in this case, the Whig opponents could not do that, and Van Buren easily had more support than any number of Whigs, and Van Buren will be inaugurated as president in 1837. 1837, within 2 months, Van Buren is going to usher in a new era of severe economic depression. It is not his fault. No president can do anything in 2 months that would cause a nationwide depression, a period in which businesses and employments fall to a very low level. You might notice that we aren't doing any business. We're not going out to buy things in the numbers we were. Just this morning, gas prices have fallen to a 30-year low because no one's going out and getting gasoline. I have not filled up my gas tank since early March. So we are going to find that the more people who do not go out and spend money, the harder it is for businesses to stay open. Disney just laid off 100,000 workers nationwide, and places all over are starting to fire their employees. This is what happens. This is what a depression is. We will go through another depression. Don't know how long, don't know how severe, but there is no indicator ahead that says that our country in 2020, 2021 is going to be doing well. And luckily, we can look to the past to see past depressions, and this is what this lesson is useful for. Now, the depression begins with a panic, when people are literally panicked and scared. It happens in 1837 because land values drop sharply. and investments decline suddenly. People are not so willing to give other people money to get businesses started, to get money into people's pockets to spend. Banks are going to fail because when a bank goes bankrupt, that money is gone. Who is going to help a bank out? In those days, there was no insurance. Today, there is insurance. If a bank runs out of money, the federal government will come and give people money. If you have a bank account that is lost, the government will give you up to $250,000 of that money right back to you. So if you have less than that amount of money, the government will come and give you all your money. That's who takes care of that. In 1837, no such thing existed. So when the bank closed its doors and locked it up and everything was empty, you lost all your money. And that's going to lead people to panic. And more people are going to drive their wagons and run on their 2 feet to get all the money that they have out of the bank, which is a bad thing because banks tend to have more money out in loans than they do in deposits. So when everybody comes and tries to take their money, there's nothing to give people and they go out of business. People are going to lose confidence in our economic system, and this is going to have a psychological and economic effect. And we're going to call this time the First Great Depression. We've had several incidences of bad economic times dating back to the Revolutionary era, where money for fighting the war was given by the states, and we didn't have one single currency, and we've had all types of money depreciation and inflation and all the things that are bad for people like you and me who don't have a lot of money to begin with. This makes it harder. We're going to lose jobs, hard to find jobs. Thousands of businesses are going to close, and hundreds of thousands of people are going to lose their job in a day where there is no insurance. There is no help for people. Prices are going to go so high that poor people cannot buy food and cannot pay their rent. In February of 1837, people in New York are going to put up signs. They're going to voice their anger. They're going to say bread, meat, rent, and fuel. Prices must come down. The voice of the people shall be heard and will prevail. This is going to translate into voting. People vote with their emotions, and these people clearly are upset. Now, like I said, Van Buren did not start this depression. And America didn't even start this depression. It all came down to cotton prices in England. But that's a story for a different class on a different day. And if I was in a classroom, we could talk about that a little bit more. However, we all have valuable, precious time sitting here at home trying to get everything done. So you can look up all of these things on Wikipedia or, your local internet website, as long as it's reputable and has some citations to prove that they're just not making it up. Now, the Depression is going to go on for a long time. Now, we didn't start the Depression. America did not create the Depression, and the president only had 2 months in office before this Depression gripped America. However, what did the president do to stop, to help, to do anything about it? He did little. He did little to solve the economic problems causing the Great Depression. His beliefs and the principle of laissez-faire that go all the way back to Jefferson, let things do what they do. Let people do what they need to do. Do not interfere to hurt them and do not interfere to help them. Things will work themselves out. That is the principle of laissez-faire. Government should interfere as little as possible. You might notice that today the government is going to interfere as much as possible. The reason that our economic depression will not be as bad as this one, as far as anyone can tell, is because the government is taking measures to stop or to limit or to help people as much as they can. You might have already seen checks being sent out by the government to regular people just so they can pay for rent and food and pay their bills. That is something that Van Buren is going to refuse to do. And of course, the situation is going to get worse. The administration will take very few steps, like borrowing money to pay off the government debts after a while, but these steps have no effect on the economic crisis. People are still going to be broke, and this is not going to be good. The Depression will last about 6 years. Laborers, farmers, and small business people who had enthusiastically supported Jackson are now turning against President Van Buren. It doesn't help that he's a wealthy northerner. It doesn't help that the country is starving to death. And a little lesson, if you are president and the economy goes down and people are in the grips of a depression or even a recession, which is like a depression, a little bit minor, a little easier to get out of, it's going to ruin your candidacy. It's going to ruin your ability to run the country, and no one is going to vote for you. If you want to find out why President Trump is freaking out so much, it's because he knows that the economy is bad by November, the first week of November. He may very well lose a lot of his own supporters, people he cannot afford to lose. So he wants desperately to open the economy back up and to get people back into work. However, with our current infectious virus, many states are going to not want to comply with that. So we'll see a couple of different battles going on through the next couple of months. It's going to be interesting. And I will be back here next time to tell you about how this is all going to work out for the Jackson Democrats and for this new Whig party that, as you might notice at the end of The Depression Continues, says the Whigs come to power. So stay tuned, and I will be back in your feed next time. Have a great day.